dedicate this event to the amazing women that I work with every day at the Ad Club. Especially Gina Grillo, who is the best boss, and Ariel Blakeman, who is the most perfect teammate every day, and Nick Pappas, who not a woman, but the most interesting and confident man in the entire world. Thank you. And now for our panel. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Nisha Dua, principal of BBG Ventures and general manager of Cambio.com. BBG Ventures, a New York-based seed fund which invests in consumer tech startups and with at least one female founder. In addition to that, she manages AOL's millennial site Cambio, which she relaunched in 2014 as a site for girls built by girls. There's a cool sticker on everyone's seat for you to take away with you, in partnership with Girls Who Code. Nisha also conceived and runs the Built by Girls program, which is so cool. Thank you.
So thanks for having me. I'm Nisha Dua. Thanks for the introduction. Bravery. People talk a lot about risk and reward when they talk about bravery. I'm a venture capitalist, so risk and reward is my game. Some of my most risky investments will be the ones that pay off the most. But unfortunately, that doesn't mean that I know anything about bravery. So I started thinking about it this afternoon, and I watched one of the first talks that David Droga made, and he talked a lot about how bravery is about risk. But he also talked about how bravery and risk is really about defiance, right? It's the defiance of a norm. It's the defiance of a superior. It can be the defiance of the money gun in this industry, is I think how he said it. And that made me think about the fact that bravery and risk is really related to personal investment. So I spend other people's money all day, but that's kind of easy, right? yeah, we all do. But personal investment is something really different altogether. So that got me thinking, and I spent the better part of this afternoon on Pinterest, actually looking at pretty much every cliched quote card there is on bravery, and it made me realize two things. One, don't ever Pinterest at work because you'll never get anything done. But two, that bravery is actually a really overused word, unless you get to the heart of the matter. And for me, that's really feeling. So I think bravery has a lot to do with feelings. It's about the feelings that make you want to be brave. It's about conviction and belief and boldness, and sometimes love. It is also about the feelings that having to be brave makes you feel, right? It's feeling a little bit uncomfortable, feeling a bit scared, and hopefully in time it's about courage and resilience. And the beautiful thing about bravery is that if it makes it feel, it has the capacity to profoundly change us. And change is what makes us great. So I'm really excited tonight in that vein to introduce three creative giants in New York. They're going to share with us their personal stories of professional, creative, and personal bravery. But I'm particularly excited because tonight is the women's edition. And at BBG Ventures, I spend my days investing in bold and brave female entrepreneurs who are disrupting the consumer tech industry. But we also run this program, #BuiltByGirls. And, I was reflecting on the topic tonight, and our mission is how do we challenge young women to be builders, creators, innovators, the protagonists in their own life? And I thought, well, really, what we're saying is how do we challenge them to be brave? And I can think of no better role models than the women who are going to speak to you tonight as the women I want these 17-year-olds to look up to and say, I can be that creative, fearless leader, especially in a male-dominated industry. So all these women, I think, can be lauded for their unconventional thinking and their brilliant ideas. But I'm going to start with Seema. Seema is the managing partner and chief strategy officer at David and Goliath. Her passage has spanned India to Africa to America. She has over 20 years of experience from Leo Burnett, Wyden and Kennedy, J.C. Penney, to name a few. And her work has ranged anywhere from food to laxatives, with video games in between. Last year, Business Insider named her as one of the 50 most creative women in advertising. I mentioned feelings at the beginning of this, but I didn't mention the not so noble side of bravery and the feelings on that end of the spectrum. That I'm going to leave to Seema.
If there was any question, I am not a giant. I'm barely over 5 feet. I'm 5 feet 1.5, and I'm lying about the half. But thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. It's a topic that's really near and dear to my heart because I work for an ad agency, David and Goliath, whose entire philosophy is all about bravery. So we, especially me, at least that one part of it, I do a lot of navel gazing about bravery. So I want to talk you through a couple sort of different points in time and what made me re-examine the concept. Because when you think about bravery, it's just so noble. It's so inarguable, right? I mean, who doesn't want to be brave? Because the assumption is that the opposite of bravery is cowardice. And nobody wants to be a coward, right? And then about 15 years ago, I don't know if any of you here Harry Potter nerds? I read them all. And 15 years ago, in the first book, there was this that J.K. Rowling wrote about Harry Potter. And she was describing the scene where he sort of mounts this troll that was in the girls' bathroom when he was trying to save Hermione. And he jams his wand up the troll's nose. And she said, Harry then did something that was both very brave and very stupid. But, there was something really interesting, right? I think that was the first time I was really sort of cognizant of the not so noble side of bravery. There is another side to it. In fact, this is a really textured concept, right? So I went digging and did some reading on bravery and went through some of those quotes that you found on Pinterest. I found it on another site. Go figure. So you start to see a theme. Throw caution to the wind. Take chances, make mistakes. By the way, these are not words that any of our clients like to hear. Pursue your principles unto death. I don't think I really glorify dying. The brave rejoice in adversity. Die the death of a martyr. And these were so, you start to see the refrain. And there is a side to bravery that sort of rejects all reason. That's the side that is absolutely terrifying, right? So you sort of stop and let it sink in and examine what it takes in that moment of bravery is actually something that's really, really awful. It's stupidity. When you get to that moment of completely abandoning all reason, it makes you so stupid that you obviously can't see or comprehend the danger involved in that moment in time, and that's where you jump. So then the notion of stupidity, I'm a strategist, right? I'm obsessed with being smarter. So for me, that is even more scary because I spend all my life trying to do this. I want to get smarter about clients' business, smarter about people. I want to know everything that there is to know. And what happened was, you realize, because I've been doing this for about 20 years now, so you realize there's a point at which, you do get smarter, and those actually do have rewards, and then quickly, you become like Jimmy Stewart in The Man Who Knew Too Much. I don't know if any of you saw that Hitchcock film. He wasn't that effective at solving the problem. It was the woman who didn't know enough that actually helped solve the problem, which then made me stop and think about, am I really the most effective strategist if I'm the smartest person in the room? And that question came at a really seminal moment in time when I was asked off a business. And the clients told my boss, they said, she uses too many big words. To which point I was like, but I don't even know so many big words. I mean, I wish I knew more. At least that way, I would merit the criticism. I didn't think I knew enough to actually merit the criticism, but that made me really stop and think about, what am I missing, right? And what I was missing was something this man showed us: the brilliance of stupidity. I mean, when he sort of talked about his success as Ali G, he said his entire objective was to, within a couple minutes, prove that he's an absolute borderline idiot. And that allowed him to ask really, really stupid questions. And that realization was, I found it so liberating. I mean, look at me. Nobody expects me to know anything. I was brought up in a third world country. I will always be foreign everywhere, and that's when I realized I could use that as a weapon. I mean, all I have to do is unleash that stupidity for a really, really good cause, and then it allows me to ask questions that others fail to ask. So like a few years ago, I was working, my client was Target, and we were asked to do a branding campaign for Target Baby. And all of the conversation was about, millennial moms, they're totally different. So, we started with the typical questions, right? The typical strategist, the typical planner questions that is like, well, so how does this generation of first-time moms feel? And the problem with that question is you get the same answers back. Oh, well, they're a little anxious, they're joyful, they're a little trepidatious, they're not really sure, they're uncomfortable, they feel fat, all of that. And then I asked something that really felt trivial. I said, well, what does this generation of first-time moms read? And that's when we found that for this generation, the #1 pregnancy book was The Girlfriend's Guide to Pregnancy. And the #1 selling book for the previous generation was What to Expect When You're Expecting. So What to Expect When You're Expecting is a really clinical book. It sort of talks about what happens in the stage and what's the brain development like. How many toes do they have? I don't think they say that. Never mind. And The Girlfriend's Guide to Pregnancy talks about farting and pooping and wanting sleep more than sex. And, it sort of demystified the whole thing. And that was actually the brave. That the creatives didn't need anything else. And then they had work like this, that, headlines like, I just had a 20-minute conversation with a stranger about nipples. But it was so lovely and real and authentic and charming. It really set Target Baby apart from all of those baby warehouses where you could get diapers for cheaper. And then a more recent example is from Kia. Kia is our founding client, and last year they were the official automotive sponsor for FIFA here in the US. And, you see all the numbers about how FIFA viewership keeps growing each year, and it's a staggering 70 blah, blah, blah million. And so, again, you start with the typical planner question, right? Which is, how do people watch FIFA in the US? And then it sort of gets you back to, well, are they staying up late? Are they skipping out work? Are they going to bars? But it doesn't really tell you anything, right? So then we ask a question that's a little more sort of stupid. We say, well, why do people watch soccer in the US? Because if you look at the viewership, only 5% of them are really soccer fans. So that's when we found out the reason why they watch is because of FOMO, fear of missing out. They did not want to know what was that big penalty that everyone's talking about that they can't comment on. So it wasn't necessarily a passion for soccer, it was a passion for the cultural conversation. So, in an environment where everybody was talking about passionate soccer fans and painted faces, our work was completely different. We recruited Brazilian supermodel Adriana Lima, and she was also the ambassador for the World Cup. And the whole message was, let's all become fans for 1 month. You know, so it was our conversation. What we created in the marketplace was entirely different from everybody else, and really successful actually for the clients. So, you know, to conclude, be brave for me, after I went through the journey and being asked of a client's business, which is always this really, when you need to get to that moment where you're groveling for any insight at all on life. And if stupid makes us a little too worried, then there is a euphemism for that. It's let's be naive. Thank you.
Thank you, Seema. I think there's a good lesson in that for all of us. I think we all try to be a little bit too smart, and there's a lot to be learned from keeping it simple and sort of looking at the world from a different lens, from outside our offices where we spend a lot of time heads down. So our next speaker is Leslie Sims. Leslie is the Chief Creative Officer at Y&R, where she drives the creative vision. I said to someone before this, in today's millennial parlance, I literally cannot list all of Leslie's awards. Suffice to say, they range from Cannes Lions to Clio's to Andes, which are important to mention tonight. And she was named one of Business Insider's 36 most creative women in advertising. So from being a little naive to leaps of faith. Leslie's going to share a little bit about her perspective on bravery as it relates to her personal journey tonight. And the bravery of maybe, disappearing, taking a time out. Before Y&R, Leslie went all the way from copywriter to executive creative director at McCann. And before that, she was at a little place called AdWorks, a regional boutique firm. So she's going to share with us a little bit about her story and talk a bit more about how you might have the bravery to acknowledge a low point and maybe disappear a little in today's always filtered, always on world.
All right, let's see if I can. All right. Apparently there's a theme for searching for. So this was a very open brief, and I was very grateful to not be up here talking about the future of advertising for the next 5 minutes. But so you guys are going to hear something very different. Seema's, that was, I'm like wanting to take notes. This is all about me, folks. I have literally, I was trying to look for, I was asking, so what kind of bravery are you looking for? Do you want it to have a logo on it? Like, where are we going with this? And they left it very wide open. So I went, while other people are obviously searching other places, I go where every creative knows when you don't have an idea. You go to Google image search. That first, this is an album cover, and I was like, that's a perfect opening slide. I'll be using that. I've never heard of that band. There were a lot of medals. This one gave me my entire theme. Some of these are just silly. I don't know. There are a lot of inspirational posters. But then we got into some really good bravery stuff, where I was like, now that's brave. So I'm starting to get a sense of, and that's brave. She cut her bangs. And then I was like, all right, so then you started getting into the stupidity versus brave, and that's where I started going, all right, I actually think, because I was trying to figure out, all right, what am I going to talk about that isn't just plain stupid? Because when I look back, I've got a long life, longer than a lot of you, and I have a lot of things that maybe could have been considered brave, maybe considered stupid. Like, I think that's kind of stupid, personally. That should be somebody should get arrested for that. Like, that kid thinks you have their nose. Like, who lets a child to go and touch a bear? I don't know. That's not brave at all. That's just plain stupid. So I'm like, all right, what am I going to talk about? Obviously, I was a very brave child. I had to be brave. And I decided to pick something that when I look back, it was seminal for me. And it kind of helped me become the person, helped me sculpt who I am. And it really falls to when I quit my first job. I worked so hard to get my first job in advertising and get into it and get paid for it, and you work your ass off. And I quit I quit that first job to basically go and be a migrant worker on a ranch in Wyoming for a summer, with nothing to go after it. And a lot of that reason, if we go back to like who I was, so a little bit of background. I was born to Presbyterian parents. My grandfather was the head new product engineer for Chrysler. So engineering was big in our family. But my dad's, side, they were all farmers. And my dad was the first one to go to college on his side. So there was a lot of pressure you go to college, and you're going to be an engineer, and you're going to be really good, and you go from high school to college, and you're going to get a job, and that's the way it goes. So I was doing that. And I had some blend of, some things came really easy for me in school, so I'd be really super lazy and basically mail it in because I could get really good grades. And then things didn't come very easy for me, and I knew to work really hard because those were the two sides of my family. I kind of got a little bit of my grandfather, and I got, my dad's motto was always, look, I may not be the smartest guy, but I can work harder than anybody. And I kind of adopted both of those things. It kind of became a little bit of my psyche of, I can get by. The things I'm good at, I'll get by at. The things that I'm not very good at, I'm going to work my ass off, and I'm still going to do really good. So I was a little bit of that, I have to be perfect kind of person. So I went through all of school, did pretty well. Right when I was going to graduate college, I took an elective that was in advertising. I went to an engineering school, Clemson in South Carolina. And I decided to go to Portfolio Center, which back then, my dad was like, wait a minute, that shit costs as much as college, and there's no football team? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And so it was honestly, that was kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be an engineer, but I'm going to go into this thing called advertising, and you come out, and the only thing you have is like this book of pictures with lines on them, and I'm going to get a real job from this stuff. And I got to Portfolio Center, and it was great. I found all these ad geeks, and it was so fun, and I worked my ass off, and it was like, all right, yes, I finally found the one thing that I think I'm going to love. And my art director and I got our first job that we sent our books to, or it was the first place I picked, and I was like, this little boutique. I can't believe you've heard of it. Jamie was like, I've heard of AdWorks. I'm like, nobody's heard of AdWorks. It was a tiny little shop. It had won a bunch of stuff. And so we were like, let's try and get a job there. That'd be really cool to work there. We sent our books, and we got our job first thing out of the gate. So I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, good for me. So we get there. I had a couple good months. Like, the first 6 months were awesome. I sold some radio. I did a couple, rate TV ads. And then though, there was a turn. And I'm sure what happened was I didn't nail a project. So somehow the creative director went, and it was only like 20 people in the creative department. There were 8 writers. I was the youngest writer. I was the only female. And which is kind of inconsequential, but a little bit not, because I was, I'm kind of navigating around. Writers were kind of king back then, so art directors were treated a little bit lesser, to be honest. And my art director and I, we worked very closely together. My art director quit soon after we started there just because she was like, I'm out of here. This sucks. I'm going to Gray. Moving to New York. So I stayed, though. I was doing very well. And then there was this tide turn. And then all of a sudden I wasn't. And I wasn't selling things. And I just wasn't getting the reception from my boss. And that really wasn't the problem. Like, for me, the way that so I can look back now and go, he was just a very aggressive, like, socially awkward person, but super, super aggressive with his dislike of your work. And and I would stay, and I was like, this is where I'm going to kick in and go, I can work through this shit, and I can do better, and I know how to, if I just apply myself, I know it's always worked before, I can just get it. And I did this for about 2.5 years. And my partner, they put me with the other junior. I was still a junior copywriter, and they put me with the other junior art director. And it was only meaningful to me after I left that this junior art director, really lovely lady, she'd been there for almost 11 years, I think, and she had been promoted to junior art director after 11 years. So this is where I was. But I'm like sitting there, blinders, like, I can make this happen. I'm going to do this. And the day hit where I came in, and I was writing these Cellular One rate ads. And like headlines, and it was an actual print ad when people used to do newspaper and stuff. And I had written, probably 4 or 5 pages. I had stayed at work until like almost 2 a.m, and I was like, this time he is just going to be like, I don't know which ones to pick. And on top of that, I was also working on this long copy campaign for months that was just torture to me, because he was a copywriter, and it was just, it'd come back and it would look like a magic eye. You're like, oh my God, like, where did you like any of the words at all, or even any fraction of the words? And it was killing my confidence. It was just killing me, where I went from, I think I know I can, some things come easy to me, and I'm awesome too. Holy shit, I'm not nailing this, but I'm gonna work through it, to, I've been working and working, and I just can't turn the corner on this. So the day happened where we had our agency, the agency comes in, you do usually on Monday mornings you do this like roll call of what projects are going on in the building and everybody has to talk to it. We had to do ours on Tuesday. This is significant for a reason. So we go in and he goes through this roll call, summons everybody to this table, and then he goes, when the long copy campaign that I had just finished came up, he goes, oh right, so Leslie, how's the clusterfuck coming? And I was 23, like now I kind of laugh at it, but I was 23 or 24 years old, and I was crushed. I had sculpted these ads with, another art, like it was just horrible. And I had to go back to my office and pick up those 5 pieces of paper that had all these headlines on it and go back in, and I had to present to him like 20 minutes later. So I'm trying to compose myself. I'm not crying, I've got all my things. And I sit in his office with my art director. He proceeds to look at it for probably not even, I can't say it felt like 5 seconds, but it could have been a minute. Scans all these headlines. He's like, Les, you're just not getting it. And then his voice always got higher, and everybody could hear. It was a small office, so he'd do it enough where everybody would hear. And this was the part. It wasn't getting work killed so much as the public annihilation of it. Like, it was just shaming of every sort. But this day was awesome because he goes, and I laugh at it now because now I'm an old fucker, but he goes, Les, all right, I need to see 3 more headlines by noon. I need to see 3 more by the end of the day. And I need to see 4 more ones that I can actually buy by morning. And it took everything in me to go, can we just skip to the 4 in the morning since you just said you aren't going to buy the next 6? So, but I just kind of got up, and he'd screamed, and he goes, or everyone's fired, which he added to the end as I'm walking down the hall. And I'm walking by people's offices, like all the senior like writers, and they all felt so sorry for me. It was just like, it was really just humiliation to the highest level. And I'm just like, I can't work through, like, and it's my first job. I'd put in so much of my time for this crap. My dad paid for this. I got home that night, and I had these 2 friends call me on the phone. They were married. I'd gone to Portfolio Center with them, and they call and they go, hey, Les, guess where we are? We're at this thing called the Howdy Gate, and it's in Wyoming. We got married, and we're like taking this summer to work on this ranch in Wyoming, and it's going to be awesome, and then we're going to move to another city, and we're going to get our jobs there. The guy who who's supposed to mow the golf course didn't show up. And I'm sitting there, and I am not this person. I'm not the kid that, like, I'm always the one that's like taking the next brief, whatever, I'm just gonna double down and write more headlines. And it was because of the double whammy of just this horrible, this person, like, no matter what I was doing, it was just publicly, I just, every part of me was like this little shovel of like, I'm not good at advertising, I'm not supposed to be doing this. So this lawnmower thing was sounding really good to me. So they go, the lawnmower guy didn't show up. Would you be interested? And I went, yeah, and they said, good, because the guy, Bob, that owns the ranch, he's right here. Do you want to talk to him? So this guy, very like calm voice, deep voice, he talked real slow. He goes, hey, Leslie, Brian and Eli tell me that you're a great person. I hear you live in a city a little bit. And he goes, have you ever mowed a golf course? And I went, no, sir. And he goes, well, there's a first time for everything. And he probably said something like, how bad could you be? And he said, could you be here on Sunday? This was Tuesday night. And I went, yes, I can. And he goes, great, we'll see you then. We got a bunk for you. And I went into work the next day, and I quit my job. And the hardest part was calling my dad because I didn't want to disappoint him. He had paid for so much schooling and trusted me. And now he's like, oh God, you did it for a couple years, and now we can just pray that you're going to get married or something. Like, it really is that call where it's like, Dad, I quit my job, and I'm going to a ranch to work. And he's like, a cult, or like, what's going on? So, but he could tell, like, he had seen over the year how I just turned into, like, my confidence was just shot. So I put everything in storage, and I got in my car on Wednesday night, and I started driving at night. I just stayed in hotel rooms, and I pulled onto this, I got here, it was like starting to get dark. It was barely making it by the Sunday, like, deadline. And I passed it, because this is the whole sign. And I'm like, holy crap, this is before you have cell phones. You don't have anything. So I've driven all this way. I would call every night to let my dad know I'm still alive. And so I took a picture of the sign, because it was so momentous to me. And then I pulled onto this road, and I kept driving and driving. I'm like, oh my God. So it takes 4 miles to get to this Howdy Gate where my friends lived. And they literally, their whole job for the summer was they'd walk out and go, howdy. And they'd live up the gate. And the person would drive in, I was like, this is perfect. I want the same job. So I get in, and this was the little place where we lived. for the whole summer, and guests come, like rich people we found out, like families would come out there. And all these power lines, all those lines are power lines. There wasn't one phone on the property. There was no television, there was no satellite. You are there, man, and you got mail, and then you would occasionally be able to go up to the office and call like family or whatnot. And I legitimately, this was a reenactment because I was so bad at it. I killed the greens, so they were like, well, you know what? Let's move you on to something else. We'll have you dig cattle guards. And I also did this for quite a bit of time. I'm the one in the middle waving. And it was the best summer of my life because I wasn't good at half the stuff, but they would always go, you know what, we'll find another thing for you over here. And I just was. There was nothing I needed to do. There was nothing I was doing so badly that anybody was yelling at me. It was very calm. And I was outside a lot, which I think means something. It does something for me anyway. And it let me, for the first time, start to go, instead of there was something in line for me and waiting, and like, all right, so you finish college, and so then you're going to get a job, and then you're going to get the job, and then you're going to get a next job, and so on, or you're going to stay in this horrible job and try and make it work, and let this person tell you how, like, let this person convince you to turn into the person they think you are. And it was so freeing to have no plan. Like, I thought I would be freaked out. I think a lot of millennials would be like, you, lady, what's wrong with you? Like, we're grown up this way. But for me, this was just not in our family, and the pressure of you have to be something at 27. And literally, I'm working mostly with college people who are like, how does it feel to fail? How does it feel to be that old and washed up already? And it's just like 27 sounded like a million years old to them. And I honestly could say, you know what, it feels great. And I was, for the first time, going, I think I still kind of like what I'm doing. I don't know whether I'm very good at it. And then by the end of the summer, I'd gotten a couple letters that I'd gotten in CA with my clusterfuck campaign. And it had gone on to win a couple of pencils, which was very gratifying for a lot of reasons, but only because it was like, you know what, maybe I don't suck as much as this one single person on the planet that happened to be my boss convinced me that I was. And I kind of looked around and saw some of the people there, and it was like one person, but my psyche is, if you work for somebody, they tell you you're bad, you must be bad, And I think this was the first time that I was like, maybe I will stay with advertising, and maybe I want to move to New York instead of taking the job wherever it comes up. I think I want to live there. And I ended up turning down a job in Chicago, which, again, my poor dad just has lost years off his life. But when I turned that job down, because it took me a long time to get a job in New York, but it worked out great because it let me go in and look at places and go, do I really want to work here? And I freelanced for like a year and a half. It was awesome. But I went to the place I most wanted to work. It was at Lowe, and Gary Goldsmith and Lee Garfinkel were there at the same time. And it was just like, this has got to be amazing. And I'm in there, and within like 2 weeks, you're like, sometimes you know right away this shit is not what you want. They're great, wonderful people. It was just like a crazy dynamic of like, no, thank you. So, you hop around a lot, and I ended up at a place that I was like, I don't want to work at McCann. I'll freelance there for a long time. And it was just such a great family, and it was like a great environment to grow. And it wasn't just because I was comfortable there, it was because I felt like I was successful there, and my work would sell there. And then I made stuff that I was really proud of, and then it would get recognized. And it was just a good blossoming for me. So I know that this is, that was 19 years ago. But for me, it was pretty epic. And I still look back and go, these are things that I learned from it. And it was to be more intentional. Like, you choose who you work for as much as they choose you. If you get in some place and it's not a good fit, it is a choice to stay. You can go, and sometimes if it's destructive, pick yourself over the place. I will always believe that. Don't compare. I really feel like right now everybody's living and comparing, and you can get so sucked up, and that person won this and how many lions and whatever it comes down to. And I had the luxury of, there was no social media where I was. There was not even a social telephone. There was no way of communicating with the outside world. And it allowed me to just decide what I wanted to do and decide what made me happy. And I like this, and so I'm going to put that out there. And sometimes it does great. Other people really like it too. Sometimes it doesn't. But I think I'm a big fan of no comparing. And also there's enough room for everybody. You see people that are doing well, cheer for them, they'll cheer for you. There's enough room for everybody to be doing very well. This one's an easy one, but it's always like, you can lie to yourself and tell yourself, I should be doing this. Like, you can never lie to your gut. although the trust your head, trust your gut never works for math. Make your luck. I know I'm not supposed to say I'm lucky, but I have been very lucky on some of the things. You have to like move yourself out of things. Extracting yourself and picking yourself over a bad situation is always important, and I don't care whether that's work or life in general. It's always important. And I always believe when you're stuck or frustrated, go outside. There's something magic about being outside that it will solve. And then my junior new business person always said, this is the one to end on. For presentations, always use Helvetica New for keynote presentations. Anyway, you guys, thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. That particularly resonated with me, and I'm sure it did with a lot of you, because I too followed a path of expectation and set plans. So it's always great to hear from someone who's taken a path that they did not expect to take. I'm really also very happy with that last piece of advice, because I don't work in the creative side at AOL, and I'm always like, how did they make that presentation look so good? And now I can be better than all of them. Our last speaker tonight, well, not quite last, we'll come back to that, is Jaime Robinson. Jaime was previously the co-executive creative director at Wieden & Kennedy in New York. She is a recipient of both an Emmy and a Cannes Lion Grand Prix award for her work at Pereira Odell. She was named one of Fast Company's 100 most creative people in business. That's my favorite of all of them. And she was also in Ad Age's 40 Under 40. Jamie's going to talk about what comes next, right? So especially at this point in industry, what comes next for being brave as a creative, and how can you create spaces for people to take risks and really do something out there, and that maybe, just maybe, the key to creating something great is love.
Actually, Leslie just told me what comes next. I'm going to go mow lawns in Wyoming. I've left Wieden & Kennedy. That's what I'm going to do. That's the key? All right. So, truth time, I almost canceled tonight because I have had some changes. And I wrote about 1,000 emails in my drafts folder, and I didn't send them, and I'm glad I didn't, because I'm looking at all your smiling faces, and they're so great. And what kind of chicken shit kind of cancels out of a talk on bravery because she's got some changes going on, right? Fuck that. So here I am, and as I sat down, I was like, you cannot do that. I love this, guys. I want like Shaka Khan to be playing I'm Every Woman. So here I am, and I thought, okay, well, what can I talk about? And the first thing was like, okay, leaving the world's best ad agency and what happens next. And like, look up there, there's nothing after my name. Usually it's a Pereira Odell, then it was a Wieden & Kennedy, now there's nothing. And but then as I started to think about that, I was like, oh, actually there's something really bigger I want to talk about, and something that's been nagging at me forever. And something that I think is actually at the heart of my restlessness, and has been at the heart of my restlessness for a while. And it's something that's really, really scary to me. And a couple of years ago, I had the great fortune to create a piece of work that was really profoundly important to me. It changed everything. It changed my career. It changed my view as a creative person, what kind of work we could do on behalf of brands. It changed me as a human being in so many ways. And I gotta tell you, it's incredible, and it's a gift to be able to do it, but it's also really terrifying. And I don't know if you guys knew about this piece of work. It was a piece of work called The Beauty Inside, and it was a long-form content piece, interactive, for Intel and Toshiba, and it was fantastic. For me, as a person, and I'm gonna just play it for you in case no one's seen it. What button do I press? That one. All right. This is a case study for it.
This is the strange story of Alex, a man who wakes up every day in a different body. And for a while, that was okay. Alex kept a daily record of his odd life on his computer, which accompanied him everywhere he went. One day, though, Alex fell in love. And that is when everything changed. How could he have a relationship if he always looked different on the outside?
You never had a girlfriend? I had girlfriends. A lot of girlfriends. Hey, Joanne.
calling for a night.
The Beauty Inside, inspired by Intel Inside, featuring the Toshiba Ultrabook, starring Topher Grace, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and the audience. The movie was aired in 6 weekly episodes, and because Alex looked different every day, anyone in the audience could play him and be featured in the film. Each episode contained a few webcam diaries in which real fans actually wrote and acted out some of Alex's most intimate moments in the movie.
I called her 3 times today. I hung up every time.
And in the end, the audience helped give Alex hundreds of faces. This love story by 2 technology companies reached 70 million views. It got strangers discussing their own sense of identity, all while celebrating the fact that it's what's inside that counts.
She was right. I would see her again. But she would never see me.
Thank you. Well, thank you. So that piece was really important to me. We won 3 Grand Prix at Cannes. We won an Andy. We won an Emmy competing against regular entertainment. It was the first time a branded piece had ever beat regular entertainment. But more than that, like, it felt like I just felt connected to so many people. Like, how many people took chances to make that happen? And so here I am. Oh, you want? Oh my God, I'm not saying the right place. Okay, all right. So here I am a few years later, and I got to be honest with you. Like, you want me to stand? Where am I? Right here? All right. All right. Which tape? This is hilarious, by the way. I should have probably figured this shit out beforehand. So here I am a few years later, and like the thing that's really nagging at me, the thing that's making me really going crazy, is like, what if that was it, man? Like, what if that was like the best it's gonna get for me? Like, what if that's the highlight? And I'm like, fuck that, because that is terrible. Like, what a terrible way to live, to think that the best is behind you. So I've become really obsessed with figuring out, like, what was the environment that helped create that, because that didn't happen in a bubble. Like, there were tons of people that were really, 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 really brave to make that. The creatives, the agency, the client, strangers. Like, those people weren't getting paid to put themselves out there and talk about their life experiences. Like, they just did it. And I thought, like, what was it, the thing that made everybody so brave? And like, this is gonna sound so corny, but the more and more I thought about it, the more I realized it was like something, there's like a very simple thing. And it's not a word that we hear a lot in this industry. And it's a very hippy-dippy California word, so I'm gonna warn you. You might, if you're squeamish, like, you know. But the word is love. Like, I think bravery needs love to survive. Like, love and like its cousins, like kindness and optimism and permission and generosity, like fucking generosity, you know? And I really truly believe that is the key to making an environment for people to feel brave and do something new in. And I'm gonna prove it to you. Because Exhibit A, like, look at kids. Does anybody here in this room have kids? You guys are all too young, but all right, some of y'all have some kids, right? All right, so kids are the most fearless creators on the planet, right? They come up with like the craziest stuff like they don't think it's something stupid. Like, I worked on Lego for a little bit, and like these kids were making like unicorn submarine, like, you know, spaceships, and you're like, that doesn't even make sense because a submarine goes underwater and the spaceship goes in the sky, and but they create because they are showered constantly with love. Right? They get love 24 hours a day. Somebody is telling them their work is beautiful 24 hours a day. And who they are is beautiful, and their thoughts are beautiful. And that's amazing. They're so brave. Okay, Exhibit B, about bravery, love leading to bravery. Soldiers. In every classic war movie that's ever been, there's like a soldier that's used the pickup line like, hey baby, stay with me tonight because I'm shipping off to war tomorrow. And you know what? He goes and he gets magnificently laid, and then like he goes off to war, and like sometimes he just, you know, dies and sometimes he lives, but he always has that like memory of that girl and that night with him, and like he's brave because he's got love. Right? True, right? Like, it's always like, God, I mean, every dude secretly wishes that he could go off to war just so that he'd get laid. And they probably pretend it all the time. You know what? Well, that's another story. I'll tell you later. But anyway, we'll talk about it later. If anyone wants to hear about that story, I'll tell you later. So anyway, And I gotta tell you, like, when we made The Beauty Inside, there was a ton of love around. So besides children who need love to create and heroes who need love to go to war, account people need love. I am sorry, like, creatives, account people need love. Like, be kind to them. Let them into your idea. It is their idea too. Don't shut them off, right? Woo, right? Clients need love. Clients are human beings. They have mortgages, they have children, they have dogs, they have fears, they have insecurities. But they also have ambitions and dreams and hopes. And if you can love them, you can share those with them. It's so funny because people are always like, how did you sell The Beauty Inside? I'm like, we didn't have to sell it. We created it together. And that is the God's honest truth. We created that work with the client and the agency together. That it is both of our work. And I am a firm believer that if you have love and you have a real great relationship with a client, you will never have to fight a client. You may have discussions, like any good marriage, where we may disagree and we talk through some shit, but you are on the same team always with that person. You never have to fight a client, never. Who else needs love? Well, creative people need love, right? Right? We all need love. We love the creative person inside you. Don't let your brain say something is stupid or not good enough or like the worst, which is the room won't like it. Like, have you ever not said an idea because you thought the room wouldn't like it? Find another room. It's fine. Like ideas, I truly believe that ideas come to us and like we can listen to them and we can, even the little limping ones, we can listen to them and we can give them a little air and a little room to breathe. And if we listen to them, then maybe they'll turn into something interesting. Maybe not, maybe they suck. But at first you gotta give them a little love. So I guess this comes down to what I wanna do next in my career. And I'm gonna tell you guys, I am going to dedicate the next, 18 months to 2 years to creating an environment where people have enough love to feel brave, and that where people can come up with crazy shit that doesn't seem right at first, and maybe it won't be, but we can go try it. Where oddballs and weird people can think of stuff. And where maybe, we have ideas that don't even have names yet or can categories, or that we can't just get a great director and it'll fix it. And so that's what I want to do. And so, I hope to tell you that this experiment works and that we create something brave, because I think that is the only way that I can ever get out of the shadow of this one idea that we had one time that changed the way I see the way it should work. All right. I hope to see you guys out there. That's it.
Thank you, Jamie. So I always like to sort of end a panel discussion with kind of like what were the few things that sort of we can take away from tonight. And so I think one is bravery 100% does not have to be noble. 2, no path is straight. 3, don't be a chicken shit. But also that I think the best is never behind you. There is always more to come. I think that your definition of the best just changes, and that's what's really exciting. So I talked a little bit at the beginning about belief and conviction, and sort of getting to sit here and listen to these 3 awesome ladies talk about their experiences still leads me to believe that that's a really important piece of bravery. But that when you bring fear into the equation, it's really about feeling uncomfortable. And that's where all this these noble words like courage come into it. It's like, how do you get past feeling uncomfortable? So let's get uncomfortable. I think there are a bunch of you in the audience tonight who took a number. So I would love to call a couple of you up to maybe share your stories if you feel comfortable with it, and even if you don't. And I get to randomly pick a number, which is awesome. So come up, talk for 30 seconds, talk for 60 seconds. Don't talk for longer than 2 minutes because I'm going to kick you off the stage. And it's Thursday night and everyone's got to go home. So I'm going to start with the number 7. Who pulled out number 7 tonight? She went to the bathroom. Did she though? Are you number 7? You're not. No. You're number 8. Let's go with number 8. Do you want to come up?
Do I come up?
Yeah. So we would love to hear, and it can be an anecdote, it can be a story, a moment where you've showed some bravery or you've transgressed something that made you feel a little uncomfortable.
Oh, wow. Hey! Is this on?
And introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Claire. I'm a designer at Carrot Creative. Woo! Something that I felt brave about. I know you sent the email out. I think like working in a creative industry, especially with a male-dominated company, it's kind of hard as a woman to like kind of stand up for your own thing and be like, hey, and like, no, I was really thinking this. But working with some of my coworkers, they actually take my opinions into consideration, so I really appreciate that. Also, I work with some sports clients, and me standing up for some of the design decisions against a lot of males makes me feel super brave, because I actually know what I'm talking about. And they're like, oh, you're just a girl, you don't know what you're doing. But I'm like, oh, yeah, I do, though. So, yeah.
Thank you. That was awesome. And it brings to mind, actually, I think this is like a good, it's not quite on the topic of bravery, but it's a little bit on the topic of it. Yeah, a lot of you have probably seen on social media this post that Jennifer Lawrence wrote for Lena Dunham's Lenny letter. There was also an article in the Washington Post, and I love this story because I think it speaks to exactly what we all need to do, whether we're 46 or 32 or 23, which is don't apologize for knowing your shit in a room full of men or in any meeting room, right? Like, you know what you're talking about. You don't have to qualify it with, oh, sorry, do you think? I mean, maybe I just don't know how the room feels. So if you find yourself doing that over the next couple of weeks, make a pact with yourself to stop doing that. So I'm going to call out another number. Get ready for it. I'm going to go with number 23. Who picked out 23? No one? Maybe they left. Maybe they're too shy. That's okay too. How about number 17? All right.
All right. So I know Claire previously, well, now, but we didn't work together, but little backstory about she's also brave is she went through a pretty rough transition from an old company to a new company. So her strength in getting through that, I think, was really inspiring to me. So, love you. So I went through a company I worked at, pretty rough transition of proving myself. And I finally had proved myself. And I was also in a really rough relationship that had taken a toll on my friendships. And I was just in a really, really low place. And so finally sat down with my friends and my family and said that in order to get out of this, I need to have a backbone and I need to be strong enough to get through this, because the only person that's going to get me through this is myself. So I moved out of the apartment with my best friends, got a new job, and broke up with the guy. And my life has been just skyrocketing. Just so amazing. So any person that is in that very low point, you have to just look at yourself in the mirror and realize that you can get through it, but you also have to have the help of your friends. And Claire was one of my friends, so yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that sometimes having a backbone is not just about believing in yourself, but it's asking for support. So I think that's a really, really great story to hear tonight. All right, one more number before we close out. Let's go with number oh no, did I say that already? Let me choose a new number. 19.
Hi, my name is Kara, and I'm a music publisher at Imago Music, and I license music. So I'm not really on the creative side, I'm on the licensing side. And just thinking about everything everyone's spoken about tonight, especially that brave girl who shared that story, just made me think of being your own advocate. So being a self-advocate for yourself and having the courage to speak up to someone you need to say what you think and how you represent yourself. And a lot of times it comes in the way of, talking about your salary and finances and having the courage to speak up to your boss and say why you believe that you deserve a certain raise or something like that. So just self-advocacy. That's all.
Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to put the call out in case there's anyone else who really wanted to be part of this exercise and I didn't call out your number. Feel free to put your hand up. Yeah, okay.
Hi, my name's Juliette Ritchie. I also work at Carrot Creative, and there's a large group of us here tonight. I'm the director of branded content there, and it's something that I'm pretty proud of. I was sort of brave in thinking that a more sort of design and development agency could take on sort of a content arm and service, so I'm proud of that. But I think I'm most proud and I feel most brave on a daily basis when I feel tenacious enough to speak my mind without questioning myself, which I feel is really kind of hard to do, especially when you're in a really big room of people. And I would say a story that I always harken back to about being the most brave is I took a trip to New Orleans last year for the first time, which was like super fun. You guys should totally go. And I went to a weird voodoo shop and I bought this candle. It was super silly. And the candle was a confidence candle. So, you're supposed to light it and, maybe you get some confidence. And I still have that candle. It's in my bathroom. Every morning after I take a shower, I look at it. And I say to myself, I don't think I need to light that candle today. I think I've got enough confidence to go through the rest of the day without lighting that. And I think that I'll continue to be brave and continue to have confidence. And it's just a reminder for myself that if I don't need to light that candle, then I'm doing good. So, yeah.
Well, I'm really glad we got to end on that story. I think one of the biggest things I take away from tonight is whether you disappear for a while or whether you're sort of like plugging through all the stuff that's going on in your life at work, one of the biggest things you can do to be brave personally is just to keep going and have some courage in the fact that you will get there in the end, even if it feels really tricky at that time. I will not share all my stories of perceived bravery tonight, but I can tell you that in the last 10 years of my career, which is hopefully just the beginning, I have found that every time I have doubted myself or not felt courageous, the time that I just kept going and pushed through has led me to where I am, and I'm having the time of my life right now. So I want to thank everyone for coming, to our marvelous speakers who shared some really personal stories. It is remarkable to be part of such a great group of women in this community. I've learned a lot from all of you, not being on the creative side, though sometimes pretending. That's like the extent of my creativity, #BuiltByGirls. Put it on your laptop. But I want to say thank you to the Ad Club and obviously to AOL for having us, and to leave you with kind of just something to ruminate on over the next 6 months or year. Think about what you'll do in maybe your professional life that is something you've never tried before. You have no idea whether it's going to work, but maybe that's the thing that might make you great next year. But also in your personal life, what's the thing that you're really scared to try? You have no idea what path it will take you down, but it might just change that path for the better. So thanks for coming tonight.